So now you've got a single piece of paper in front of you, and you've got this situation that the client is currently in. You've got the desired future state that they want, and you've got the contribution that they believe you're going to make to this project to enable that outcome, that desired future state. And you've got three prices. You've got $50,000 at the top, you've got $22,000 in the middle, you've got $10,000 at the bottom. Now and only now are you allowed to start thinking about what you're going to do, the scope. They might have told you 100 things they want you to do, and you'd be like, okay, that's interesting, that might work. I'll come back to you with 3 options, and we'll talk about how we could potentially contribute to this outcome. And at $10,000, you say, what could we do to move the needle the client wants moved? What could we do for $10,000 that would be fist-pumpingly happy to do? So probably something that you would have billed $5,000 for. So even if there's some scope creep or there's some changes, you don't care because the price is $10,000. And so you load into that $10,000. You can think of it as a budget. Here's $10,000. What scope, the client gives you $10,000. What scope are you willing to do as the seller that you'd be happy to do for $10,000? That's the scope for option 1. It's the very last thing you think about. And in there, you're going to talk about the benefits of this particular option to the client. So there's some stuff about we'll do this, we'll do that, the other. There might be a couple deliverables. But the benefits of those deliverables in this intervention on our part will be increased clarity, alignment of the senior leadership, some decreased cart abandonment, whatever the benefits are, the things they actually care about. And then you just do that for the other 2 prices. So the options I recommend would be incremental, so they can pick option 1, or they can pick option 2, which also includes option 1, or they can pick option 3, which is the whole shebang. And we were talking about Blair earlier. Blair has I love Blair's sort of framing for these 3 options. One way to think about it is the first option is a DIY option. So you give the tools, you take your know-how, package it up, and deliver it to the client in a way that will allow them to run with it. So that would be the $10,000 option in this scenario. In option 2 in this scenario, let's say $22,000, you give them all of those tools, maybe some training or deliverables or a framework or some kind of documentation, and then, but also you will coach the team through the process, their team, while they're implementing it. You'll help them, you'll be there in their corner to help contribute. So your involvement is a little bit deeper and you more reliably can move the needle for them. And then the done for you option would be the top option. And that would be where you actually do roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty doing the really hard stuff. Whatever it is about your job that really needs an expert's touch, that artful piece, then you would do that, and then their team would be, continuing to do a lot of the creative execution stuff that they're capable of under your guidance. So that's just one way to, one example for breaking up the 3 options, incremental options, and scoping them last. Once you do this, if you close the deal, you're going to need to get really good at managing scope creep. In my world, there's no change orders. The price they agree to is the price they pay. So you need to build in a lot of margin. That's why I said if the price is $10,000, put in a scope that you would do for $5,000. And then when there are changes, it's no problem. It's fine. Whatever the price is, when you set the scope for that price, there are going to be changes. It's not a surprise. Every single time, every project I ever worked on, there were surprises. Every one for 10 years. It's always going to be there, so build it into the price, and then you don't have to fight about we didn't know there was going to be a rock where we're going to put the pool. I mean, how could there be a rock in the ground? I mean, just never heard of that before. You're experts, you know what you're doing. You know that there are going to be surprises. The other thing is, so you build in profit to cover the price, to cover the changes. The other thing that happens, very common, is that there'll be scope creep. The client will come along and say, hey, while you're working on the website anyway, could you put a carousel at the top of the homepage? And you'd be like, how will that contribute to the stated goal? I mean, we're trying to improve the conversion rate on the checkout on mobile. What does putting a carousel on the homepage have to do with it? Nothing, but the VP of sales saw it on our competitor's website and they thought it was really cool. So since you're in there anyway, and then you say, remember way back at the beginning when we first met and I said I was going to tell you no sometimes? This is one of those times. I'm going to take that request and I'm going to say no to it because it will jeopardize the stated outcome of this project. Not because you don't want to do it, not because it's a bad idea, but because the client can't make a business case for how it will contribute to the stated outcome of the project. So you say, I will track this request and any others like it. I'll keep a list of them. And once we declare victory on the thing we said we were here to do, then we can revisit that other stuff, that other list. And I'll give you a later quote for that. In practice, they never come back and ask for the carousel. It's just a question of like, just say no in a polite but firm way, and that's it. You just have to say no. Set the expectations up front that you're that kind of person. This is what it's like to work with us. If you want someone you can boss around, we are not the firm. This is a big mental shift if you're used to taking every single request is more hours, more money, great. Yeah, I'll do all these requests that have nothing to do with the original idea or the original reason we were contracted, and that's why our hourly billing encourages scope creep. So if you're listening to me say fixed prices are the way to go, and you're like, yeah, but we'll get killed on scope creep, know that hourly creates scope creep because there's no penalty to you. In fact, you get rewarded by scope creep. The only time it bites you is when you're 50% done and the budget's gone, and then they start getting angry and going over your timesheets, and now you're in a fight.